Please don't hit me. I'm already hurt. The choked scream echoed through the crowded airport terminal. A woman in a white business suit, usually radiating power and authority, now collapsed, clutching her bruised shoulder. Passengers around her stood frozen, a famous CEO begging like a frightened child. The crowd only took photos and recorded videos. No one dared to intervene. Only one man in a wrinkled shirt holding his young daughter's hand stopped. He sat
Welcome to Truth Lines USA, where every story reveals a hidden truth. So, without further delay, let's begin today's story.
down his suitcase and looked directly at the man with his hand raised. In that moment, no one knew this ordinary single father would change everything. Daniel Brooks, 38 years old, a single father and former military serviceman turned maintenance worker. Widowed, living with his daughter Emily, 8 years old, a little girl who loved to draw and always carried her box of crayons. Daniel avoided trouble, focusing entirely on raising his daughter. Rainy afternoon at the airport where he and Emily happened to witness CEO Victoria Hale, 35 years old, being pressured by her business partner. Daniel stepped in to stop the confrontation, forcing the aggressor to back down. He helped Victoria away from the crowd, bringing her to his apartment near the airport because of the rain and her injuries. The small apartment was warm and welcoming, filled with children's drawings and family photos. Victoria sat in the modest living room, still shaking from the encounter. Her shoulder throbbed where her business partner had grabbed her, and her pristine white suit was wrinkled and stained with tears. "You didn't have to help me," she said quietly, watching Daniel move around the small kitchen. "Yes, I did," he replied simply, filling a kettle with water. "No one deserves to be treated like that." Emily emerged from her bedroom, clutching her favorite crayon box. She studied Victoria with the serious expression children get when they encounter something new and potentially important. "Daddy, why is the lady crying?" Emily asked with innocent directness. "She had a bad day, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups have bad days too." Emily nodded solemnly, then approached Victoria with the fearless compassion only children possess. "Do you want to see my drawings?" "Oh, they're happy pictures. They might make you feel better." Victoria felt something crack open in her chest. When was the last time someone had offered her something purely to make her feel better, with no ulterior motive? "I'd love to see them," she whispered. As Emily spread her colorful drawings across the coffee table, Victoria found herself genuinely smiling for the first time in months. The pictures were full of sunflowers, rainbows, and stick figures holding hands under bright yellow suns. "This one is my daddy," Emily said, pointing to a figure with brown hair. "And this is me. And this empty space is for someone special we haven't met yet." The words hit Victoria like a gentle blow. This child had unconsciously left room in her family portrait for someone unknown, someone yet to be loved. Daniel returned with tea and a first aid kit. "Let me look at that shoulder," he said, his voice carrying the calm authority of someone accustomed to handling emergencies. As he carefully cleaned the bruise and applied ice, Victoria closed her eyes. His touch was gentle but competent, the hands of someone who knew how to fix things that were broken. "You were military," she observed. "Navy medic, 8 years. What made you leave?" Daniel glanced toward Emily, who was now coloring a new picture. Priorities changed. Some battles are worth fighting. Others aren't worth the cost. Victoria understood. She'd been fighting battles her entire adult life, but suddenly she wasn't sure what she'd been fighting for. The apartment was small by her standards. Her walk-in closet was probably larger than their entire living space, but it felt more like home than her penthouse ever had. There was love in the details. Emily's artwork carefully displayed on the refrigerator, a reading corner with well-worn children's books, family photos showing happier times. "Your wife was beautiful," Victoria said, noticing a photo on the side table. "Sarah, she died 3 years ago. Car accident." "I'm sorry. She would have liked you," Daniel said, surprising them both. "She always said you could tell someone's character by how they treated children and strangers." "Emily likes you, and you needed help." That would have been enough for her, a trace of authenticity. Emily offered Victoria the knitted blanket her mother had made, saying, "You're cold, aren't you?" the simple gesture of a child recognizing someone else's pain and wanting to comfort them. That night, Victoria slept on their small couch wrapped in a blanket that smelled like lavender and safety. For the first time in years, she felt protected instead of powerful and discovered she preferred it. In the small kitchen, Daniel cleaned Victoria's wounds and made ginger tea for her. Victoria shared her story. Being forced into a marriage to keep her CEO position, she was just a pawn in a business deal. Daniel told his story, losing his wife once thinking about giving up, but Emily kept him anchored to life. The atmosphere grew heavy with shared silence. Daniel said, "You don't have to be strong tonight." Victoria broke down crying. They stayed up until 3 a.m., sharing their fears and losses. The next morning, Victoria joined Emily making pancakes. Clumsy and unpracticed, she burned the edges. Victoria had never made breakfast before. In her world, meals appeared on schedule, prepared by staff she barely acknowledged. But standing in Daniel's tiny kitchen, trying to flip a pancake while Emily provided enthusiastic coaching felt revolutionary. No, you have to wait for the bubbles, Emily instructed with the patience of a born teacher. See, like that. The pancake was lopsided and slightly charred, but when Victoria tasted it, she thought it might be the best thing she'd ever eaten. How do you do this every day? Victoria asked Daniel as they cleaned up the breakfast chaos. Do what? Make it look so natural. The parenting, the household management, the balance. Daniel laughed, a sound with little humor. I don't have it balanced. I'm making it up as I go along, hoping I don't mess her up too badly. You're an amazing father. I'm a father who loves his daughter and tries his best. Some days that feel like enough. Other days he didn't finish the sentence, but Victoria understood. She'd spent her entire adult life trying to be perfect at everything, and it had left her empty and alone. Over the following days, Victoria found herself returning to their apartment after work. She told herself she was just checking on her injuries, but truthfully, she craved the warmth she found there. Emily had declared Victoria her special friend and insisted on showing her everything. Her rock collection, her favorite hiding spot behind the couch, the way she organized her crayons by color intensity. Do you want to help me plant flowers? Emily asked one afternoon. Daddy said we could make a garden on the balcony. Victoria had never planted anything in her life, but she found herself kneeling on the small balcony, digging her manicured nails into potting soil while Emily supervised with professional seriousness. The flowers need love to grow, Emily explained. You have to talk to them and give them water and make sure they get sunshine. What do you talk to them about? I tell them about my day, and I tell them about Mommy so they know about her too. Victoria felt tears she didn't understand. What was your mommy like? Emily's face brightened. She was really good at hugs, and she made the best cookies, and she always knew when I was sad, even when I tried to hide it. I bet she was wonderful. She was. But now Daddy is sad sometimes, and I think he needs someone to take care of him too. The innocent observation hit Victoria like a revelation. She would never thought about taking care of someone else without expecting something in return. That evening, while Emily drew at the kitchen table, Victoria and Daniel talked on the small balcony. Can I ask you something? Victoria said, Always. Why did you help me that day? You didn't know who I was. Does it matter who you were? Most people think so. Daniel considered this. I helped you because you needed help. Everything else is just noise. Even knowing who I am now, what I represent. You represent someone who was being hurt and needed protection. That's all I saw. That's all that mattered. Victoria had never experienced being seen so simply, so clearly, without the filter of her wealth and position. Daniel, she said quietly, I need to tell you something. My family, my board, they're going to come looking for me. They won't just let me disappear. Are you planning to disappear? The question caught her off guard. I don't know. I don't know what I'm planning. For the first time in my life, I'm not following a strategic plan. How does that feel? Terrifying and liberating. Good. Fear means you're taking a real risk. Liberation means it's worth it. 2 days later, Victoria made a decision that surprised everyone, including herself. She submitted her resignation as CEO effective immediately. You don't understand, her assistant said over the phone. The board meeting is tomorrow. The merger depends on your presence. Then they'll have to figure it out without me. Victoria, this is career suicide. Victoria looked around Daniel's living room where Emily was teaching her how to braid friendship bracelets while Daniel prepared dinner in the kitchen. Maybe, she said, or maybe it's the first honest decision I've ever made, a trace of authenticity. Emily burst into laughter, saying, "You cook just like Daddy." All three of them laughed together, creating a moment of pure warmth and connection that felt more valuable than any business achievement Victoria had ever accomplished. That night, lying on the couch that had become her refuge, Victoria realized she was falling in love, not just with Daniel, but with the life they'd created, a life where pancakes could be burned and still perfect, where friendship bracelets were important currency, where love was measured in small daily kindnesses rather than grand gestures. For the first time since childhood, Victoria fell asleep looking forward to tomorrow instead of dreading it. 3 days later, luxury cars and lawyers arrived at the apartment building to apply pressure. A man mocked condescendingly, "You have nothing if you don't come back." Daniel remained calm. "She's a person, not property." Victoria stood tall and declared, "I'm not going back. I choose myself." She placed her company card, ring, and car keys on the table, symbols of old power being rejected. The group withdrew with threats. "You'll be left with nothing." Victoria collapsed. "They're right. I have nothing." Daniel shared his wife's words before she died. "Don't try to save everyone. Just hold the hand of someone who's trembling until they can stand." Daniel placed his hand beside hers, letting Victoria choose to place her hand on his. The confrontation came sooner than expected. Victoria woke on the third morning to find 3 black SUVs parked outside Daniel's building. "They're here," she whispered, watching from the window as men in expensive suits emerged from the vehicles. Daniel looked outside and recognized the setup immediately. "Emily, go to your room and close the door." "But Daddy, now sweetheart, please." The knock on the door was sharp and demanding. Daniel opened it to find Victoria's stepbrother, Marcus, flanked by 2 lawyers and a security team. "Hail," Marcus said, barely acknowledging Daniel's presence. "This foolishness ends today." "I'm not going anywhere," Victoria said, stepping beside Daniel. "Look around you," Marcus gestured dismissively at the modest apartment. "This is what your rebellion has brought you, a tiny apartment with a maintenance worker and his child. Is this really what you want?" "Yes," Victoria said without hesitation. "This is exactly what I want," Marcus laughed coldly. "You think this is real? You think he actually cares about you? He's using you for your money, your connections." "I don't have money or connections anymore," Victoria interrupted. "I resigned. Remember, a tantrum we can fix, but this?" He looked at Daniel with disgust. "This is beneath you." Daniel had remained silent throughout the exchange, but now he stepped forward. "You're done talking," he said quietly. "She's told you her answer. Time to leave." "And who exactly are you to make demands?" Marcus sneered, "Some nobody playing white knight. I'm someone who understands that people aren't possessions to be collected or traded." The lawyers began pulling out documents, talking about breach of fiduciary duty and family obligations. Victoria listened to them reduce her life to legal terminology and felt something crystallize inside her. "Stop," she said firmly. "All of you stop talking." She walked to the kitchen table where Emily had left one of her drawings, a picture of 3 stick figures holding hands under a rainbow. "You want to know what I choose? I choose this. I choose people who see me as a person, not an asset. I choose a life where love isn't conditional on performance metrics." "You're being naive," Marcus said. "What happens when the novelty wears off? When you realize what you've given up?" Victoria looked at Daniel, then toward Emily's bedroom, where she could hear the little girl humming while she played. "Then I'll still have chosen to be human, instead of a corporation." She removed her designer watch, chast, the last expensive item she wore, and placed it on the table with the other symbols of her former life. "I quit. All of it. The board, the family trust, the obligations. I choose something real." Marcus's face turned red with fury. "You're throwing away $1 billion legacy for what?" "Love." He said the word like it tasted bitter. "Yes," Victoria said simply. "Love. And if you don't understand why that's worth more than money, then I feel sorry for you." After they left with their threats and ultimatums, Victoria slumped onto the couch, emotionally drained. "They're right about one thing," she said. "I really don't have anything now." Daniel sat beside her. "You have Emily's friendship, you have a place to sleep tonight. You have people who care what happens to you. That's not nothing. But what if I can't contribute? What if I become a burden?" Sarah used to say something when I worried about the future. She said, "Don't try to carry tomorrow's problems with today's strength. Just be present for what's in front of you." Victoria looked around the small living room that had become her sanctuary. "What's in front of me? A little girl who wants to show you her new drawing, dinner that needs to be cooked, a friendship bracelet that needs finishing today. Just today." That evening, as they sat around the kitchen table eating spaghetti and listening to Emily chatter about her day at school, Victoria realized something profound. She wasn't poor. She was rich in ways she'd never understood before. "Victoria," Emily said, twirling pasta on her fork, "are you going to stay with us forever?" "I don't know about forever, sweetheart, but I'd like to stay for as long as you'll have me." "Good. Because I already drew you into our family picture, and I don't want to have to erase you." Later that night, after Emily had gone to bed, Hakwariah and Daniel sat on the small balcony looking at the city lights. "Are you sure about this?" Daniel asked. "You're giving up everything you've ever known." "I'm giving up everything I thought I wanted for everything I actually need." "What do you need?" Victoria took his hand. "This people who choose me for who I am, not what I represent. A place where I can be imperfect and still be loved. The chance to discover who I really am when I'm not performing for an audience. And if you decide later that this isn't enough, if you want your old life back." Victoria smiled, feeling more certain than she had about anything in years. "Then I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. But right now, this feels like the first real choice I've ever made." Daniel squeezed her hand gently. "Sarah always said the bravest thing anyone can do is choose love over fear. Is that what I'm doing? What do you think?" Victoria looked through the sliding door at Emily's drawing stuck to the refrigerator at the couch where she'd slept peacefully for the first time in years at the man beside her who'd shown her what unconditional acceptance looked like. "Yes," she said, "I think that's exactly what I'm doing." Victoria began working at a non-profit organization helping abused women. Lower income, but her eyes were brighter than ever. The three of them replanted the balcony garden together, the place where Sarah once tended flowers. Emily talked about her mother. "Mommy taught me to wait for flowers to bloom, not to pull their petals." Daniel and Victoria gradually understood each other better, sharing small family responsibilities. One night, Daniel said softly, "I love you, not because you were a CEO, but because you're becoming the person you choose to be." Victoria replied, "I'm not ready yet, Daniel. We'll wait. I'm here." Victoria's new job at the women's shelter was unlike anything she'd ever experienced. The work was emotionally demanding, requiring her to listen to stories of trauma while helping survivors navigate legal systems and rebuild their lives. "I don't know if I'm qualified for this," she confided to Daniel after a particularly difficult day. "What makes you think you're not? These women need someone who understands their struggles. I've never been truly powerless before last week." Daniel considered this. "Maybe that's exactly why you're qualified now. You know what it feels like to be controlled, to have your choices taken away, and you know what it takes to walk away from that." Victoria's direct supervisor was Maria, a woman in her 50s who'd built the shelter from nothing after escaping her own abusive marriage 20 years earlier. "You're different from most of our volunteers," Maria observed during Victoria's second week. "How so?" "Most people come here wanting to save everyone. You come here wanting to understand everyone. That's much more useful." Victoria had thrown herself into learning every aspect of the shelter's operations. She helped with intake interviews, assisted with job placement programs, and even learned basic legal advocacy. Her business background proved unexpectedly valuable in helping women understand contracts, finances, and their rights. One afternoon, while helping a young mother fill out housing applications, Victoria realized she was using skills she'd never known she possessed. Not business acumen, but human connection. "Thank you," the woman said as they finished the paperwork. "You really listened to me." "Most people just want to tell me what I should do." That evening, Victoria shared the comment with Daniel and Emily over dinner. That's because you know what it's like when nobody listens. Emily said with her characteristic directness. You think so? Yes. Before you came here you look like the ladies on TV who smile but have sad eyes. Now your eyes match your smile. The observation delivered with a child's uncomplicated honesty made Victoria's throat tight with emotion. Their life together had developed its own rhythm. Victoria would arrive home in the evening to find Daniel helping Emily with homework while dinner simmered on the stove. She changed out of her work clothes and joined them, often taking over reading duties while Daniel finished cooking. I like this, Emily announced one evening as they sat around the kitchen table. It feels like we're a real family now. Weren't we a real family before? Daniel asked gently. Emily considered this with her usual seriousness. We were a good family. But now we're a complete family. Like the drawing I made, she showed them her latest artwork. 3 figures standing in a garden, each holding a different flower. This is us, she explained. Daddy has a strong flower because he takes care of us. I have a happy flower because I'm still growing. And Victoria has a beautiful flower because she learned how to bloom. Victoria felt tears she didn't try to hide. It's perfect, sweetheart. Later that evening, while Emily was in the bath, Victoria and Daniel worked together in their small balcony garden. The flowers Sarah had originally planted were thriving under their care. I keep thinking about what Emily said, Victoria said carefully, watering a row of marigolds. About being complete. What about it? I've never felt complete before. I felt successful, accomplished, powerful, but never whole. Daniel looked up from the herbs he was trimming. What's the difference? Complete means all the parts fit together naturally. Successful just means you've achieved someone else's definition of worth. They worked in comfortable silence, their hands occasionally brushing as they tended the plants. Victoria found herself studying Daniel's profile in the fading light, memorizing the concentration in his expression. Daniel, she said quietly, that night you said you loved me. He stopped working and gave her his full attention. I wasn't ready to hear it then, but I think I am now. And Victoria set down her watering can and faced him fully. I love you too. Not because you rescued me, though you did. Not because you gave me a place to belong, though you did that too. I love you because you saw who I could become before I even knew that person existed. Daniel reached out and cupped her face gently. Are you sure? 'Cause once we cross this line, there's no going back to being just friends. I don't want to go back to anything. I want to move forward with you, with Emily, with this life we're building together. When Daniel kissed her, Victoria tasted earth from the garden on his lips and thought it was the most honest kiss she'd ever received. From inside the apartment, they heard Emily calling. Are you guys being mushy out there? They broke apart, laughing. Yes, Daniel called back. Very mushy. Good, Emily replied. Mushy is when you know it's real love. Victoria and Daniel looked at each other and laughed again, realizing that an 8-year-old had just provided the most accurate definition of love either of them had ever heard. One morning, Emily showed Victoria a drawing of 3 people in a flower garden with the caption, My family is growing. Victoria cried, feeling chosen for the first time in her life. She said, If you two still need me, I want to stay. Daniel embraced her. Welcome home. The sunlit kitchen filled with Emily's laughter, Daniel making coffee, Victoria watering flowers on the balcony, gentle twist. Victoria discovered military medals and thank you letters. Daniel had once saved an emergency flight but never mentioned it. The knitted blanket, the drawings, the garden symbols coming full circle. 6 months after walking away from her corporate empire, Victoria's life looked nothing like what she'd planned and everything like what she'd needed. She'd moved into a small apartment 3 blocks away, close enough to be part of Daniel and Emily's daily routine while maintaining the independence that felt healthy for all of them. Her work at the shelter had evolved into a leadership role, using her business experience to expand their programs and secure better funding. She was earning a fraction of her former salary, but felt richer than she ever had. I have something to show you both, Emily announced one Saturday morning, producing a large poster she'd been working on secretly. It was a timeline of their story, illustrated with her distinctive artistic style. The day Victoria needed help was prominently featured, but surrounding it were dozens of smaller moments. First pancakes, garden planting, family movie night, learning to be happy. This is our story. she said proudly. It starts scary but gets beautiful. Victoria felt overwhelmed by the child's ability to see their unconventional beginning as part of a larger beautiful narrative. That afternoon, they received an unexpected visitor. Daniel's former commanding officer, Colonel Martinez, arrived in uniform carrying a briefcase. "Brooks," he said, embracing Daniel warmly. "Good to see you, son." "Colonel, what brings you here?" "Official business, actually. There's someone who's been trying to reach you." Victoria watched curiously as the colonel opened his briefcase and pulled out several letters and photographs. Flight 447, emergency landing, March 2019. Ring any bells? Daniel's expression grew guarded. "Sir, I don't. 23 passengers and crew hydraulic failure over the Atlantic. You were the medic who kept them alive during the emergency landing." Victoria felt her breath catch. Daniel had never mentioned this. The colonel handed over the letters. "These are from the families. They've been trying to thank you for 6 years." Emily bounced excitedly. "Daddy's a real hero." "He always was," the colonel said, "but he's also humbled to a fault." After the colonel left, Victoria confronted Daniel in their garden.
"Why didn't you tell me?"
"It wasn't relevant. You saved 23 lives and it wasn't relevant." Daniel continued trimming herbs, not meeting her eyes. "I did my job, that's all." "Daniel, look at me." When he finally did, she saw the same humility that had drawn her to him originally. "You don't see it, do you? The pattern. You saved those passengers. You saved me at the airport. You save Emily every day just by being her father. You don't rescue people for glory or recognition. You do it because it's who you are. I see people who need help, and I help. It's not complicated." Victoria laughed, not from humor, but from wonder. That's exactly what makes it extraordinary. That evening, as they prepared dinner together, Emily made her final announcement of the day. "I know what I want to be when I grow up." "What's that, sweetheart?" Daniel asked. "I want to help people like you and Victoria do, but I want to help them with art so they remember how to be happy." Victoria and Daniel exchanged glances over her head, both understanding that their daughter, because that's what Emily had become to Victoria, had already learned the most important lesson of all. Later, as Victoria watered the flowers that had become symbols of their growth together, she noticed something. The knitted blanket Emily's mother had made was folded neatly on a chair nearby, no longer stored away, but integrated into their daily life. "Sarah would be proud," she said to Daniel. "Of what? Of the family you've built, of the man Emily's becoming because of your example, and of the life you've created from love instead of fear." Daniel nodded, touching the blanket gently. "She always said home wasn't a place. It was the people you couldn't imagine living without." Victoria smiled, understanding finally what home actually meant. Final message: family isn't where you're born, but where you're chosen and choose again every single day. If you believe healing stories like this deserve to be told, please leave a comment and subscribe to Hidden Heart Stories. We tell stories that shouldn't be forgotten,